Timeout show for a Saturday. Frank Beck Chevrolet, Randy's Auto Body, Wolfinger Hardware, the Jack Smith Agency, Performance Automotive, Certified Maintenance, Coach, Bees Driving School, and Todd Moore State Farm. Today, Grant Moore and Dylan Leebrick are here to talk about Townball, a new opportunity for Hillsdale residents that I think is going to be a huge hit, no pun intended. And then Rick and Jed and I are going to talk about the Tigers, who actually won a Major League Baseball game last night. Not sure how they did it, but they found a way to win a game. And we'll talk about that more coming up with Rick and Jed. Also, the NBA Draft Lottery is this week. I had a revelation last night, an epiphany, that if you're a Piston fan, you're not going to want to hear. We'll hit that later on this morning as well. And talk a little NBA playoffs, a little hockey, a little potpourri later on in the hour. Right now, though, we're really excited to welcome Grant Moore and Dylan Leebrick into our WCSR studios. They have something special that they're cooking up for the summer. Men, how are you?
Doing quite well. Thank you very much. Happy to be here, Andy.
Good to be here. I'm going to push that button so you're actually on the air. There you go. Now we can. Hey guys, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Grant, you messaged the station a couple of days ago and kind of laid out a description about something that you guys are cooking up this summer. Why don't you take a moment and just tell everybody what you're up to?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, firstly, my name is Grant Moore. I live here in Hillsdale. My family's lived here for the last 3 years or so. I got a brother at the college, and my mom is a piano teacher here in town. For the last few years, I've been pretty involved with pretty much like a twist on a vintage baseball game that was very kind of a mix, like 80% this Massachusetts game from 1858, 15% elements from cricket, rounders, stool ball, if you know any of those latter ones, and then 5% kind of our own ideas. The full name of the game is 21st Century Townball because there were some variants that sort of kept the name Townball in the late 19th century. So this is our interpretation of it. And the main differences between Townball and baseball are that there are 5 bases, not 3, 5. You have no foul ball territory. You can steal first base anytime you want after the first pitch is thrown. There's only 1 out per inning, and one of the most common ways you can get out is if you get a pitch that goes right down the middle and hits this physical strike zone that stands about 3 feet high behind the batter. It's like a rectangular shape with some truck netting over it. I brought it to the studio just so Andy could see. But
yeah, could you hold it up for everybody to see what that looks like? Yeah. So if you're watching on the Facebook Live, so it's some metal pipe, and what is that, about 18 wide by couple of feet high?
Yeah, right about. For this one, we used a galvanized pipe just from the hardware store,
sure,
and then threw some truck knitting over it. In the future, we're gonna hopefully use a little cheaper material.
And is that the bat right there?
No.
What is this? Tell me what this wooden stick is here.
So the wooden stick, this is what we use for bases.
Okay.
So for every one of our 5 bases is actually a 4-foot tall wooden dowel that you just pound a few inches into the ground, and that is directly translated from the 1858 Massachusetts game that comprises most of the rules in the game.
So when you reach the base, do you have to hold it with your hand, or how do you connect to the base?
If you're going to stop there, hold on to it.
Got it.
You better have some bodily contact with it. If you don't, if the ball hits your body, you're out.
You gone.
You gone.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pegged. If you're not inside, if you're outside the batter's box, and if you're not touching a stake, you are liable to getting out if the ball hits your body.
So you could be tagged with it, or it could be thrown at you.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's a softer ball. Don't worry. You can get a feel for it.
Oh, it is a little bit softer. Okay.
It's not going to permanently injure you.
Not permanently.
So what kind of sport is this ball typically used for?
So one thing I'll say is that, first of all, the stitch design is a little different. It's not a figure 8 like a baseball.
Right.
It's a lemon peel design, which looks about exactly how it sounds.
Huh.
You've got like that, your X crossing over the top, and it doesn't complete on the bottom, so it looks like you can peel it off. This is from the 1860s, I believe. This particular ball was made by a guy in Long Island who's a a big part of the vintage baseball community at large in the country, and eventually we're hoping to get our own proprietary balls made uniquely for our type of gameplay, but this is working just fine in the meantime. But yeah, those stakes, that's what you use for the bases, and if you know you've got a double or a triple or a quadruple or a quintuple in our game, you probably didn't think that was possible. All you got to do is tap the stake as you keep going. But if you don't tap it on your way, it's like you never got there. So you have to make sure
You have to touch
them
it
on the way around. Yeah.
Is there a stake at home?
Yeah. So
Is it called home?
It is called home.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and describe this as best I can. So the field is not a diamond, of course. It basically is more of a square, and you kind of start from the middle, you go out to the side, and then you go counterclockwise at 90-degree angles. So you've got...
You go counterclockwise.
Yeah, so you got a batting point.
Just like
in the
baseball,
middle.
from that standpoint.
You go directly to your right, 42 feet. And I mean, you can steal first base in this game without even hitting the ball. And 42 feet, that's less than half the distance of home to, or start to first in baseball, right? So if the pitcher is tying his shoes or is distracted, you've pretty much got first in the bag if you're quick.
This actually happens quite often in the game.
Quite
It's
often.
the most
Almost
fun
all the
aspects
time.
of it, yeah.
And then you go up to second, which is 68 feet. It's a 90-degree right angle. Turn left again to head to third. That's 110 feet. Third to fourth is 110 feet, and then fourth to fifth is 110
Okay.
feet. So fifth is kind of like behind and to the right of where you start out. You don't go back to where you start. You end and start in different places, but
So
that constitutes a run.
home and where you would score are different.
Correct.
Different places. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, since the ball is never dead in this game and you can always steal, it's easy to get on base in the beginning, but as you continue to second through fourth, fifth, the distance increases, and so at that point it's a game of strategy and distraction because there's no timeouts. I mean, the only time nothing's happening is when possession changes in an inning.
So you're not trying to have a 5-hour game or anything like that?
No, and that usually gets prevented because the way you win in this game is by runs. We technically don't really have an inning limit because we don't really need one. If we had to, we'd probably cap it at like 55, which sounds like a billion years, except for the fact when you realize that there's only one out per inning, and sometimes the length of an inning can be 5 seconds if a pitch goes right down the middle and gets the zone.
So how do you determine the end of the game?
You have to get at least 8 runs and be ahead 5 runs of the other team. If both teams are within 5 runs of each other and they're kind of meeting both of those criteria, then it's a race to 13 runs. And whoever gets there first, you got it.
So a game could be really quick or it could take a while.
Yeah, and I mean, the odds can change really quickly. I've played several games where, 3, 4, 5 innings in, we got a team that's doing really well, and they're up, like 6-0. And then our team changes a few things with our strategy, and we're able to bounce back. The one thing that's cool about Townball is you can shuffle the batting order every cycle. So it doesn't have to be the same sequence of players every cycle, which is great if you're trying to make an in-game decision about, all right, I got the bases loaded right now. I could really use a hitter. You're not beholden to a particular order of
Could
players.
you lead off the same guy multiple straight innings?
Dylan, do you know what he's asking?
Yes, you can. You can keep the order the same if you want. And it's also worth noting that regardless of how many runs...
You get a little closer to the mic there. We get big
regardless of how many
Thanks,
runs
Dylan.
it takes to win a particular game, like regardless of how well both teams are doing, you're never going to end up with any 3 or 4 hour games like you're getting every day in MLB these days. So it's still very fun to play. The game has a very quick feel to it, very casual feel to it.
How many people do you need to play?
Usually a good game, you can get by with maybe 6 or 7 to a side, but a full true roster is 13 to a side.
13 on a side.
Yeah.
You're trying to get to 13 runs.
Yeah. You see the patterns. Yeah.
And you have to score...
I mean, you have to get to 13 if you're
up by 5.
If you're within 5 runs of the other guy, right?
Right.
Of the other team. If it's an 8-2 game, you got it because you're well above 5 runs in them.
Grant, how did you come up with the idea for this, or what inspired you to follow through with this?
So none of anything with Townball is my original idea. Quick backstory. So my family lived in Oregon for a long time. It's pretty much where I grew up. I was going to university near Portland, Oregon at a four-year Christian school called George Fox. And we lived right in the town where the college was, Newburgh, Oregon. I actually have a newly fresh jersey that my friend's wife made that has Newburgh on the front, because that's where we have a team actually from Newburgh that'll be going down to the central area of California to play some tournament games this summer. Newburgh, Oregon is right outside of Portland, maybe 27,000 people, which to me felt small at the time. I kind of laugh at that now.
Yeah, right.
Hillsdale. End of sophomore year, I had a younger brother who was going to a school in town, and there was like this after-school program they had, which was Townball, and their math teacher by the name of Daniel Jones was leading it, and I got to meet him, and he had recently come to that area from Fresno, California. He had taught math there for like 15 years. In 2012, he and his students were trying to create like a fall sport that their school could play. It was like a university, high school kind of prep situation, and they wanted to go back to these variants of baseball in the late 19th century before we had one codified, solidified version of the game that we could call our pastime. That version we have today is from New York, and so the Massachusetts one was kind of like a runner-up. Mm-hmm. It didn't end up becoming the national pastime just because of, New York had better marketing, better talent, and other things, and the field was a little different too, and they were just smarter at the time. But the Massachusetts game never really got to kind of have its full completion or telos or ultimate end, and that's what my friend Daniel and his students realized. And so they loved the game, but they wanted to try and kind of fill in the gaps where they thought there were gaps. That's why our game, as it is right now, is 80% that Massachusetts style, but then the other 20 is some other elements we've thrown in that are precedents from other variants of that time, and then plus a couple of our own ideas. Probably the only aspect of the game that's truly original is our field design, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. For any of you math nerds out there, our field is modeled off of this really cool phenomenon called the Fibonacci sequence. It's an algorithm that shows up in things as disparate as the breeding rates of rabbits and the way that flower patterns bloom. It's kind of cool. It's also referred to as the golden ratio, if you've heard that before. So, my friend's a math teacher, right? We had to incorporate some level of nerdiness to that. Well, it makes sense because, baseball is very geometrical. One of the reasons why the game, with the New York game with the diamond it works to some extent is because everything is in threes. It kind of has this perfection to it. And so the Massachusetts game originally didn't really have that very strongly. So we thought, well, we got to compensate for that somehow. And so we think we've done something that makes at least an appeal to that quality of the sport.
Speaking with Grant Moore and Dylan Leebrick, who are promoting their new sport, Townball, which certainly people who are listening today who are interested, we're going to tell you how to learn more about it. Dylan, one of the cool aspects of this is the brotherhood, the fraternity, the connection between the college and the larger community. You're a college guy. You go to Hillsdale College. You'll be a senior in the fall.
That's right.
Grant does not attend Hillsdale College. So this is an opportunity for the college and the community to come together and do something fun this summer.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think we're looking forward to the most about this is being able to integrate college students and community members in one common sport that's really fun. It's got a great casual feel to it. You're not looking at buying much equipment or any. We have all of that we can just provide.
I can fit it all in my trunk.
Yeah, no, it's honestly one of the big appeals for me because, I had my Little League stardom back in the day, but things did get expensive eventually, and that was honestly, I think that's one of the more common drawbacks for a lot of people is the expenditures when you're young and when your parents don't want to pay mad money for Little League, so... but I enjoyed baseball so much. Baseball is my first love. So then discovering Townball is like discovering a very renewed version of the game that's affordable, that's really fun, and it's a good time for everyone who wants to participate.
A couple other questions for these guys before I let you go. Dylan, pitching, is it an underhand pitch? Is it an overhand pitch? Are you trying to throw curveballs and sliders? Are you just tossing it over the middle? What's the pitching methodology here for Townball?
Yeah, so the cool thing is you want to pitch anything that's ultimately going to try and hit the physical strike zone. As a pitcher, the zone is your best friend. If you hit it, and even if the batter makes contact with the ball, but the ball still hits the zone, you're out. You've gotten zoned. That's a zone out, and there's only 1 out per inning. So
and that's the inning.
Exactly.
So if you can hit that thing, it's over. That inning's over.
Exactly. So as a pitcher, you can throw however you want. There's a pitching line behind which you have to stand.
52 feet.
Exactly. It's 52 feet from where the zone is. But you can actually run up to that line if you so desire. Jump over the line and throw the ball before you hit the ground and get a zone out that
As
way.
long as you touch the ground last from behind the line.
Exactly.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Which is how I've managed to zone people, surprisingly enough, a couple times. I was a terrible pitcher back in my Little League days.
Are you using a regular baseball bat?
We no metal bats, just wooden or bamboo. Yeah. So I went to Dunham's last summer and I just got 2 bats and called it good.
People aren't using baseball gloves. Is it barehanded or?
We do use gloves.
Oh, you do have a glove. Okay.
Unlike the rest of vintage baseball clubs in the United States and mostly the Midwest, we actually do use gloves. Yeah, and can I have a quick word about the vintage baseball community?
Yeah.
So there are about 200 plus vintage baseball clubs in the United States who, like us, are kind of have a common mission of bringing people back to the game of baseball in a way that can make people have more of a backyard community feel, that has more of those things that I think culturally we all liked about baseball 40, 50 years ago. Not to say, that people don't still follow today. Obviously they do, but there has been a bit of a decline, and part of that is due to the level to which it's been commercialized, and people didn't like all the steroid use since the 90s and other things, and it's mainly a game about stats, what you're doing at the plate and other things, whereas Townball incorporates pretty much every position, and you have to keep doing that. And we just got back actually a couple weeks ago from the Vintage Baseball Association conference in Detroit. I brought the little bag.
Oh, there it is.
From that, we were in Dearborn.
That's awesome.
And, my business partner Daniel Jones, I mentioned earlier, we got to present about this game to sort of basically the gatekeepers of vintage baseball in the United States, and they loved it and they want to play. There's probably 5 or 6 vintage baseball clubs in the Midwest that will be playing this summer, and one of the reasons that I wanted to get a local team is not just to establish players here who can play each other here, but so that way we can have a nice pool of people for when we go out abroad. The location that we're going to try and play at this summer, right here in town, is the Hillsdale County Historical Society on Wolcott Road. Thanks to Joanne Miller and parts of the board, I met with them last week. Very enthusiastically, they'd love for us to be there. There's like one more hoop to jump through in terms of paperwork and whatnot, but they very much want us to be there. So practices, Dylan and I are hoping to use those as a way to get people at least exposed to the game and used to it before we would ever have an exhibition game, which will likely happen in July, maybe mid-July, thereabouts. We don't really have a schedule yet because we're still trying to finalize the nuts and bolts with the field by the Will Carton Poorhouse. That's where it will be, but that'll be a good way to get people who are new kind of well into the feel of it before we actually play and they can feel competent.
You don't have to have a baseball diamond. You could do it in an empty space or an empty field, so that's helpful. Before we wrap this up, let's find out maybe the most important thing today. People listening who are interested, who want to get involved, who want to play, what do we have to do to get started? How can they contact you guys and get involved?
Yep, absolutely. My email address is Grant, MANGM @gmail.com. GrantManGM, my initials GM @gmail.com. So they can get to me that way. I'm going to be playing Townball tournaments in Central California for a few weeks next month. So the best person to contact in Hillsdale County around that time will actually be Dylan.
Sure.
I can give you his contact info.
And if you want to reach me at dylan.leebrick@gmail.com, that's LEE brick @gmail.com. Feel free to reach out, and we'll make something happen. We'd love for everyone to participate. It should be a great time.
GrantManGM @gmail.com. and Dylan.Leebrick, Leebrick, @gmail.com for information about Townball. All ages. What is that part?
Yeah, it's co-ed. I would say that if you're younger than like 13 or 14, it might be a little difficult. So I'd say that probably the minimum age. Although there's so many things you can kind of tweak about the game, and because you can shuffle the batting order and do different things like that, it really allows for a pretty wide range of talent, shapes, and sizes to win a game. I mean, it's not just about athleticism. It's about knowing when to run, knowing when to steal. You can hit the ball and choose not to run on it. That is an option. You can do that up to 3 times, and then because it's a strike each time, then you're compelled to run. But yeah, there are many equalizers in the game in terms of the competition, and it really helps everybody feel like they bring value to the team.
Okay, Grant and Dylan, Townball happening this summer, and we have their contact information here at the studio. You can contact me if you need any information, and I'll put you in touch with these 2 guys. I think if you're looking for something different, people get sick of going to the gym. It's the same dang thing every day. Here's something you can do and get a lot of exercise and not even really feel like you're exercising. That's what I love.
Fresh air, man. Hit some balls around.
Get outside, for the love of God.
We love it. Yep.
I'm trying to get Dylan to go to a Tiger game with me later this summer. Dylan is a Seattle Mariners fan.
Darn right, yeah.
How the Mariners doing so far? Let me hear.
We've been scuffling to start the first month and a half or so of the season. We had initially a good start, but our pitching's let us down a bit lately. Our bullpen hasn't been what it was last year, but I fully expect that once we get through May, we're on a really tough road trip right now. We're actually playing the Mets. We're one of the best teams in baseball currently. But
can't believe we're saying that. But
I know.
The Mets are good. Can you believe it?
I didn't have those expectations coming in. But once we get through May, I anticipate we'll bounce back. I think the Astros' best days are behind them, and I don't think the Angels' initial success is going to sustain itself. So I think my Mariners do have a legit shot at the American League West this year.
The month of May, we can all still have hope, unless you're a Tiger fan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Dylan Leebrick and Grant Moore, Townball happening this summer. GrantManGM @gmail.com. Dylan.Leebrick, Leebrick, @gmail.com. Email the boys, get more information about Townball. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
Thanks for having us on.
Of course.
I'm going to go home and have some breakfast now.
God bless you, brother.
We appreciate it. Take care, man.
Thanks to both of you. Thanks for being here. Take a quick break. We'll be back with Rick and Jed next on the Time Out Show. Good stuff, man.